present Oakland at-large council member Rebecca Kaplan, and I might add, has the distinction of being only one of three at-large council members in roughly a 40-year history, if you think about it.
Awesome.
Right? With Franklin.
Hey everybody, it is my honor to present Oakland at-large council member Rebecca Kaplan.
It was so nice we had to say it twice. And so as a result, we did. And council member and council president Kaplan, first of all, again, thank you very much. And give us an update on the council with respect to the whole matter of police defunding.
Yes, thank you so much for having me on, and thank you for doing the local media coverage that you do. So many things that it's really important for the public to hear about.
Thank
and
you.
So appreciate the opportunity to talk with you and with your listeners, and really to share what I think is important when we talk about the question of moving resources from the police department to other strategies in the community, that often people are confused about it if they don't hear what exactly it is that we're moving, right? So people might hear we're moving a certain dollar amount, but if they don't know what specific function we're talking about, then they can get either upset or confused by that. So I thought it would be important to lay out what are some of the specific things that I have fought for us to shift to non-police resources. One of the biggest problems in terms of police departments these days is that they are relied upon to do everything. They are asked to be the social workers. They are asked to be the responders to mental health. They are asked to be the responders to homelessness. And it's really inappropriate, both because they aren't trained and prepared for that. It's incredibly expensive, and very often those encounters go very badly. When somebody is in need of mental health support and what is sent is someone with a gun, but who is not trained in mental health, often the person who's in need of help ends up getting harmed rather than helped. And it's disproportionately African Americans being harmed in these ways. And even when not, it is wasteful and hurtful. And so one of the things we fought for and won this year is the launch of civilian mental health responders for mental health calls, so that someone will get a trained mental health worker who will be able to be deployed to mental health situations rather than relying on police for that work. The city of Eugene, Oregon has done this. Their program is called Cahoots, and it's been very successful. And they say they're saving over $8 million a year in reduced police deployment by using these civilian personnel, and they're getting better outcomes, both for the community and for the people who need mental health support. So that's one of the things we advanced this year that I think is incredibly important. And I want to say that is really a testament to the work of so many in the community who've been fighting for this for a long time. And so last year in the budget, we won funding for an initial study on the idea of doing civilian mental health response in Oakland. That funding was put in the budget at my urging and at the urging of grassroots community. And that study was conducted by Urban Strategies Council together with broad community stakeholders. And they put out a report that's now called Macro, which is the proposal for an Oakland-based mental health response, which the council has now funded for this fiscal year. And so thanks to the work over the past years to fight for it to be planned and budgeted, now as other cities are just starting to study civilian mental health response, Oakland studied it last year, and we're now funding the actual launch of the program. Another thing that I fought for and won just last week is to move special events out of the police department. Now, as you and many of your listeners know, this is something the community has complained about over the years, that having special events be run by the police department is incredibly expensive. There have been complaints about disparate treatment where African American based event operators are made to pay more money than white event operators, and that people have no idea what they're going to be charged, that the process is unwieldy and cumbersome and takes a long time to get a special event permit. And then the police department gets to tell you to hire a huge number of police if you want to have your event, which costs so much for our community. And that's money then that comes out of the hands of those who really need it in our community. And so one of the things that we had on the agenda, part of our proposal, was to civilianize special events. That means you don't need to be a police officer to be processing the paperwork of special event applications. And when we're doing, for example, a street closure for a parade or a festival, that does not require having hundreds of police officers deployed to it. Plenty of cities do this with other personnel, such as public works or transportation, who can put out barricades to close a street. And you don't need to have hundreds of police officers at every event and festival. And so that is a specific thing that I put forward. The council did pass it. And so that will move ahead in this fiscal year. And I think that will help both to reduce costs on police and also to make it easier and more effective for our community to have events and festivals in a reasonable way. So those are two of the specific examples that have passed. There's one other proposal I made that did not pass yet, but that I think we'll keep talking about, which is our police department has their own PR department. They have their own PIO. They have their whole own media operation that is operating separately from the city government. And so they put out different information. They've put out in multiple cases information that has been proven to have been untruthful. For example, when OPD assisted ICE to raid a home of a family in West Oakland, OPD media operation put out publicly that that family was engaged in criminal human trafficking. That was not true. It was a lie. It was a Trump lie. And it was spread by people being paid by the taxpayers of Oakland. And so there's no reason for the police department to have their entire separate media operation that could be operating at cross purposes to the city. That should be consolidated into the city's public information operation and used in a way that is about propaganda of one department versus another. And in the recent budget debate, the police department public information personnel called press conferences to say, oh, crime is getting worse, you better, give more money to the police department. But why doesn't after school programs and parks and libraries each get their own information staff to put out their own press releases about how important their work is, right? And actually some of the information they put out also was untrue, but it doesn't make sense to have a whole separate media operation for one department. So I think we'll be continuing to look at that. And I'm also fully supporting the proposal put forward by Nikki Bass that was then authored jointly by Nikki Bass and Lauren Taylor and passed the council to have a task force to continue to work on additional areas that we can shift. And I've also asked for us to specifically look at traffic enforcement as one of those specific areas that is often the source of these horrible cases we hear about of someone gets pulled over for a minor issue and then ends up killed or injured by police. So that will be coming forward as well.
Hey, out of curiosity, also, there was this matter of taxing the rideshare organizations. And I know that's sort of been, well, tabled is the wrong term, but Berkeley and Emeryville passed theirs, in particular Berkeley. Have you seen a model that you like?
Yes, Berkeley passed one that will be on this November ballot. Emeryville decided to go for the next election. And my colleagues, we did actually get a majority on council in the sense that it was a 4-3-1 vote, but it takes 5 votes to put it on the ballot. So we haven't yet put one on the ballot in Oakland, but even some of those who weren't ready to vote to put this on the ballot now have committed to continue to do the work. Let's be clear what we're talking about. These billionaire corporations are not paying taxes. They use our public streets and our infrastructure. They're often blocking bike lanes and bus stops to do their business. And, taxis pay taxes to the city of Oakland. Clothing stores pay taxes to the city of Oakland. Bicycle stores, right? Every business doing business in the city pays taxes to the city of Oakland. But these rideshare companies are not. And so I had proposed a draft ballot measure that then was revised and came to council that would close that loophole. And while it didn't pass this time, it did get a significant number of votes. And we're going to continue to be working with community and stakeholders to bring that back, because it's just not fair and equitable that everybody else is paying taxes and these huge corporations are not.
And in the moments, Derek Sue is one of our vloggers, and he's also a homeless person. And to make a long story short, in watching his vlogs and the people he's talked to, it seems that there's a disconnect between the city and what's going on in the homeless community, how can we close that gap? Because he makes a number of points that are too numerous for here, and I'd like to put two of you guys together privately. But I know you're on top of that too. How can this situation be improved, or from your perspective, or is it, or
No, I think it's absolutely true that Oakland's response to homelessness has been inadequate. As you may know, the number of people living unsheltered in Oakland has more than doubled in the last 3 years. It's actually gone up more in Oakland than virtually anywhere else where they've done any counts. And in particular, we've seen growing displacement, more and more people being pushed out, wrongful evictions, or somebody having an economic problem and no help. The council voted a couple of years ago to put $2 million into a fund for emergency tenant assistance for those situations. But the administration did not issue the money for 18 months. They apparently just sat on it and didn't actually put that money out to help tenants. And during that time, thousands of more people were displaced. But then also in terms of the on the ground.
Oh, my Lord, I'm sorry. That hurts.
No, it's horrifying. And then in terms of what's going on the ground and the sense that the direct communication with the homeless has been incoherent. One of the things that the council actually voted to do that I strongly fought for was to create a high-level homelessness administrator position in the city administration, because there has been this sense that the response is incoherent. Nobody's really in charge. One person says, you can't stay here, you have to go there, and then someone else says the opposite. And so I and some other council members pushed that we really need, for a problem of this magnitude, a high-level leader in the administration. The task is to coordinate that effort. We put that money in the budget. We fought for it. It passed. That person has now been hired. His name is Dariel Dunstan. He deserves our support. And so now the question is, how do we make sure that the administration actually gives him the resources to do his job, doesn't undermine it? Because now we fought for the position, we created it, and this issue is of such magnitude, it really needs that level of high-level coordination.
And out of respect for you, we're going to end it there. Stay in the back stage. Council member, council president, thank you so very much for such an information-packed session. We're going to have you back. And don't go anywhere. You got it, okay. Hey, everybody, thanks, and we'll be back.